Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. I'm delighted we're going to be speaking to Fiona Oakes, the vegan queen of the extreme. She's a British marathon runner who holds 3 world records for marathon running. In 2013, she won both the Antarctic Ice Marathon and the North Pole Marathon. She runs despite losing a kneecap from an illness when she was just 17. Hi, Fiona.
Hi.
How are things with you at the moment?
Really good. Really busy. Preparing for my next race, looking after the animals. So yeah, it's always a challenging day in the Oakes household.
Oh, I can imagine. Now, there are some, I love this, the record-breaking vegan queen of the extremes. You run ultra marathons in cow outfits. I mean, reading through your bio of the races that you've run, it's absolutely phenomenal. But I'd love to hear how you would describe yourself. How would you introduce yourself to people who maybe haven't heard about you?
Me personally, I just introduce myself as a pretty, just a normal person doing kind of off-the-wall things. Predominantly, I don't even describe myself as an athlete. I describe myself as an animal advocate. That's what I do. I look after animals at my sanctuary. We've got 450 rescues. That's always been the core passion in my life, certainly in the last 20 years since we've had the sanctuary. So yeah, I never think, when I stand, I'm doing these things, so I never think it's particularly extraordinary to have, kind of run a marathon to the North Pole or in Antarctica or what I've done. I suppose I'm sort of in the centre of it all, so it's just kind of going by, and I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just doing it.
Tell me more about your passion for animals and the animal sanctuary. How did that all come about? Was that something that you were very involved in when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, I quite unusual circumstances. I went vegetarian when I was 3 years old, and that was back in the 1970s. And that was totally self-inspired. My parents weren't vegetarian. My parents weren't particular animal lovers. They liked animals, but they didn't love them, and they didn't feel the need to be around them particularly. They respected them, but that was a pretty normal kind of upbringing. And at 3 years old, I decided that I knew where meat came from. I knew that was the flesh of an animal, and I didn't want to eat it. That was simple enough. I was very headstrong child, even at that age. Knew myself really at that age, my mum said. So she kind of went along with it. But as I got a little bit older, I started to ask my mum, well, where does milk come from? For instance, why doesn't the cow need it for her babies? And my mum made the decision at that time to tell me the truth. And I kind of reacted to it by saying, okay, I wouldn't say I was familiar particularly with the word vegan at 6 years old. I just didn't want the products. So that was the core foundation of my life. It always has been, this love of animals, not wanting to harm them. I never thought running a sanctuary would become a reality. It was always one of those dreams that you saw, if you won the lottery, or if a knight in shining armour came along and swept you off your feet and said, what do you want? How do you want to live your life? Oh, I want to live amongst animals. I want a sanctuary. But it certainly wasn't something that came very easily to me. And over 20 years ago, we started Tower Hill Stables Animal Sanctuary. So I thought that was basically as much as I could do for animals. I wasn't eating them, and I was nurturing them. I was caring for them at the sanctuary. And I suppose I'm one of those people that constantly wants to grow and learn and do more and achieve more. Exactly the same with my running. So I decided I wanted to advocate for animals in some shape or form, to encourage others to just understand that, break down myths and stereotypes, that you can be really strong and fit and achieve endurance events on a plant-based diet. And there was very little publicity surrounding plant-based at the time. I think there has been a bit of an explosion, almost a trend-like explosion with veganism at the moment. But back in sort of the late 90s, it was still a word that people weren't familiar with. They thought it meant vegetarian. They didn't really understand. So I wanted to basically promote veganism. What I was a very healthy, strong vegan adult that had grown up from a vegan child. And I realised very quickly that you needed a platform from which to speak out. And I suppose the running, I built myself that platform through the running, because I realised that it could be said it was my opinion that you could be strong and healthy on plant-based diet, but there was no facts. And I wanted to kind of prove that you could. I wanted to create the facts. And that's where the running came about. And I'm constantly, so really everything I do in my life is based around some way helping animals, but it's very, very varied, very varied.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to know more about the running as well, about how you got into that. I mean, when did you start getting into your running?
I come from a cycling background. I used to work in London. Before we had the sanctuary, I lived a pretty conventional life. I worked very, very long hours in London. And I used to bike race, road and track bike race. When we actually got the sanctuary, it was pretty apparent that the way we were going to formulate things was Marty, my partner, was going to go off and work to earn money to pay for the animals. And I was going to stay at home here and care for them. And that prohibited me really from leaving the sanctuary for very long hours at a time. I mean, an hour at a time was about all I could get away. You can't leave, like, at the time it was about 200 animals unattended. And I suppose being a competitive bunny and quite frustrated, always wanting to keep fit, I just started to very tentatively jog because it was cheap and it was easy and it was something that you could do any time of the day or night. You could do it alone. You didn't need a lot of equipment to go out and just jog. The one factor with my running that made it quite difficult was that in my teenage years, I had a lot of surgeries, orthopedic surgeries, nothing to do with being vegan. It was just I lost a kneecap, basically, in the end. Bones were fragmenting, especially in my patella. And in the end, they decided the best course of action was to remove the kneecap on the right side. And I was told at the time, you will never walk properly. You will always have a slight limp. You will certainly never be able to do high impact exercise, i.e. running. That's why I took to cycling. So I thought, well, I've been told that I can't run, but I've never actually really tried. So I thought, well, gentle jogging. And then, as I say, the competitiveness came out in me and sort of gentle jogging turned into kind of pushing it a bit. But the natural progression, you know, you run a loop one day and you look at your watch and it took an hour. So you think, oh, I wonder if I can get it under an hour. I wonder if I can get it under 55 minutes. And when I was out doing this, I suddenly thought, I wonder if in some way I can make this work for the animals more than just keeping me fit. I want to build a platform. I want to speak out for animals. I want to show that you can be healthy and strong on a plant-based diet, a long-term plant-based diet. Bearing in mind, I've been vegan since I was 6 and vegetarian since I was 3. So I suppose it just started in a very amateur way. I still consider myself a really, really amateur runner. I don't actually know too much about running. I sometimes make people laugh and I say I don't actually really like running. And I do. I feel very, very kind of bad when I say that, because obviously I enjoy and I am blessed with the fact that I am able to run. There are so many people out there that couldn't even dream of running for whatever reason. But I think when I mean I don't like running, I mean that the sessions and the level I wanted to achieve always dictated that every session I did, every rep I did would have to be at its full-on maximum level to achieve and put me where I needed to be. So 10 800-meter pushes in the morning at full-on capacity, knowing that you've got to go out and run 12 miles in the evening, I suppose it takes away the enjoyments and puts it into kind of different category. But that's really where the running came from, pretty much like anyone else's running, really, that doesn't set out to be an athlete and has been brought up with athletics on a very, very amateur way. I mean, and just kind of seeing what you can do, learning by trial and error, formulating your own training plan. Have had it quite difficult in that I live in a very, very rural community. Very few people even now will you ever see out jogging. No access to a running club. Can't run on a track because my knee is so bad I can't run bends. I have to do speed work on a treadmill. And I've never had a coach. So I've had to kind of work it all out for myself, how to run a 2:38 marathon. I've had to work it out for myself. It's everything I do. I try to do my best with everything I do, whether I actually achieve that or not. But I always I put my heart and soul into it, because I think for my running personally, I'm doing it for a slightly different agenda than somebody who's probably just running to get a little bit quicker time, or wants to place in a race, or wants to qualify for championship start and London Marathon. I'm doing it kind of for a different reason. So I suppose my philosophy towards my running is slightly different than most people's. But I'm pretty much like anyone else, really. If I can do it, anyone can do it. That's the message. Anyone can achieve what they want to, if I can. Because I've certainly got no talent for running. That's the one thing I haven't got. I've got a lot of determination, a lot of grit, but I really don't consider myself having any talent. And when you've lined up against people that you know to have talent, I've stood next to Paula Radcliffe on the start line of the London Marathon, you think that person's got talent, but I know I haven't. Brings you down to earth with a bump.
I mean, my jaw is open, especially, I mean, talking about like your kneecap, so you've lost a kneecap. Did you get a replacement kneecap? No,
there was absolutely nothing offered at the time. This was back in the late 1980s. In fact, quite funnily, when I decided that I was going to change my running around, if I reach a ceiling of what I can achieve, I'll either diversify or drop it and go on and do something else. And at the time, I thought I'd reached the ceiling. I can't come better than 20th overall in the London Marathon. I am never going to go and win the London Marathon, if you know what I mean. That was the maximum I could do. 2:38 was the best time I was ever going to get in a marathon. That's not. I haven't got any more in the tank to give. So I either move on and change tack. For me, it was to kind of drop down a tier in races and go and win marathons and break course records. But at the time, I was changing towards these ultra distance races, the Marathon de Sable. And I thought, well, is my knee going to hold out for this? Yes, for sure. I've established that I can run basically in a straight line on tarmac on a fairly flat surface for 26.2 miles at a relatively quick pace. But is it going to take the rough and tumble of climbing, sand dunes, the kind of constant battering that 250 kilometres across a Sahara desert with a giant backpack is going to put extra added fatigue on my knee? So I actually went to see a sports doctor, and I told him the situation, and he said, I cannot believe you are telling me that you have no kneecap and you have achieved all you have. And at that point, he said, look, even though it's a private doctor, I am going to do an ultrasound on that knee to check that you haven't got a kneecap, because I honestly I can't believe it. I can't believe the way you run. I can't believe any of it. And not that I'm calling you a liar, but I'm wondering if there's something got confused in your mind. And my mum was waiting outside, and I actually ran out to her and said, Mommy, come here. Have I really got no kneecap? Because it was so long ago. And she said, yeah, you've got no kneecap. Anyway, he did the ultrasound, and he said, for sure, I can't believe whatever that consultant has done inside your knee. It looks a complete mess, but it obviously works for you. And so, but the consultant who did the operations at the time was quite unusual. There was nothing to replace it with. He said, because I was still growing, it wouldn't be an appropriate thing to do. And that's why I was told I would probably carry a limp. I needed to work very, very hard to build up the muscles in the right leg where I could. And even now, I am very well aware that I can dislocate it very, very easily. So it's not easy for me. It really isn't easy. And I do run in a certain amount. I won't say chronic pain. Towards the end of a marathon, when you are pounding towards the maximum that you can, after about a couple of hours, my knee will go to that next level of being very uncomfortable to actually hurting. But I know that I'm not damaging it. I know that is a hurt which will stop if I stop running. So it's just that little bit of motivation to get to the finish line that little bit quicker. So I can manage it, if you see what I mean. I can manage the situation. It's more mentally difficult, because I remember once when Paula Radcliffe was talking, when she was really at the height of her fame with the time she was running, she said, the last thing you want to do is to walk to the start line of a marathon knowing that you carry an injury. And I've actually never walked to the start line of a marathon knowing that I don't carry an injury. I'm always very well aware that there's going to be a problem in this race. Whether I can manage that problem or get round that problem is up to me. But it's not easy for me. It really isn't.
I think it's absolutely fascinating, because there's a little bit of mindset in there, walking to the start line, knowing that you've got this injury, and it's about managing that pain, and it's that mental challenge. I mean, mentally, when you're running a race such as London Marathon, going for a time of 2 hours 38, which is just phenomenal. I mean, how do you balance the sort of the pain and the drive and the motivation and running at that speed?
Well, I think anybody that's run a road marathon, especially really into marathon running, will know that when you set a marathon running, training for one race twice a year is a really, really hard thing to do. You literally are pinpointing a specific time on a specific morning in 5 months in advance and working towards that being at your peak at that particular point. Mentally, you've got to be very brave to run a quick marathon. I've always said you haven't got to be that fast. I mean, that's only 10 miles an hour, but you've got to be able to keep it going. And you can't make time up in a marathon. You can lose a lot of time in a marathon, but you can't really make time up. You've got to commit from mile 1 that this is what I can hopefully still be running at mile 25. It's all about management. I mean, I think, I have to manage my knee, but I have to manage everything else about the race and be brave and just to know and have confidence that the training you have done, and I do train very, very hard. I make no apologies for that. I go out before I'm running a marathon, especially a hard road marathon. I will go and 10, 12 every Sunday for 10 to 12 weeks before my taper. I will run getting very near to the distance and over the distance. And that's just to trick your mind. If you suddenly go into a race and it starts to get really hard, like race condition hard, and your body and your mind have never been there before, naturally you're going to panic and think, oh no, I can't do this. But if you go out every Sunday morning and you do it, I don't run as hard on a Sunday morning, although I do train quite quickly. I don't have a lot of easy sessions in my training. But your body thinks, no, this is what I do on a Sunday morning, and I know I can do it. And I do tend to like to fatigue my knee in that same way, to work out what I can run through and how I can manage like my stride pattern or have slight adjustments that you can make to get around it. It's not easy. It all comes with experience. And I used to think, well, what good's experience kind of thing? You just got to be able to do it on the day. But I think it's mind management. You've got to learn how to kid yourself and how to, because they do say the marathon is mind over matter. Obviously, you've got to be relatively fit, but you've got to believe as well. And you've got to know, and you've got to have been there so many times in training. And that's the one thing I have got. I've got a lot of experience now. I know how to extricate myself from difficult situations just through my experience level, having been in similar difficult situations many times previously.
So, I mean, obviously where you're based, working on the sanctuary, there's no running club close by. I don't think you've got a running coach, but I'd love to hear more about your training and how you fit it into your lifestyle with all of the animals and the demands that you have on your time.
Well, the animals always come first. I always say that. So if they need something, the training would have to go by the board. I get up at 3:30 in the morning, every morning, and I see to that first tranche of animal jobs. And then if I'm training for a road marathon, when I was really running quick road marathons, certain days, like 3 days a week, I used to have to train twice a day. So I would literally, the lack of time would almost be a very great motivator for me, because I knew that if I wanted to be able to fit in certain sessions, I had to be meeting targets in my daily life. And I remember sometimes, I'd be outside shoveling muck or just finishing up, literally going through my mind, as I know a lot of people are, thinking, where can I find my socks? Or, I hope I turned the, washer on yesterday for my running kit, or I'm going to be fishing it out and wearing it again, kind of thing. And it's all about literally almost, if you want something done, ask a busy person. I used to keep going all day. I still do. I literally get up in the morning and I just work through. I never kind of stop. I never stop to think, I don't want to go out running, or I'm dreading it, because I'm always motivated to do it, because I know that through lack of time, I've got to be back at certain times to feed merchants here or make deliveries. So it's just kind of, I'm very, very lucky. I've got a lot of energy. And I know because I'm running for the animals, I'm running to promote something I really believe in. And I live amongst those animals. So I can see them every day. I can see the reason that I'm doing it. It's not easy. I mean, I tend to, if anybody wants to know how I reach that formula of running 2:38 in a marathon, it's quite a simple formula. Tuesday lunchtime, 10 800 metre pushers. In the evening, a 12-mile easy run. Wednesday, I do kind of a longer midweek run of a couple of hours on the road. Thursday, sort of 2,400 metre pushes and a 12-mile run in the evening. Friday, I do hill pushes and a longer run. And Saturday, I do 6-mile pushes and a 6-mile run in the evening. And then on Sunday, anything from 23 to 28 miles. And then Monday, rest day. And that's what I tend to use to work. My program used to be, and I used to religiously go out and do it. I'd find time in the day or even in the night to get those sessions stuck in, so that I knew that. I always say, especially with road racing, if you are not ill and if everything goes to plan and the weather is fine and you aren't carrying an injury, they haven't got some lurking virus that you didn't know about, the time you run on the day is just like when you take money to the bank and you invest it. And on that day, if you've taken that money, if you've done those miles, you just go and withdraw the funds and you will get the time. It's a simple equation. I used to pretty much know what I would run if all went to plan based on the training I was doing and the targets I was meeting in the training, especially with regard to my speed work. And I think that is what a lot of people say. What is the magic to moving up a level in your training? So even if you're a 4-hour runner or a 5-hour runner and you think, I want to get down to 4:30, I want to break 4 hours, it's speed work. Don't just fall into the trap. Yes, for sure. If you go out and you become more familiar with running longer distances, you will become more adept at running longer distances, but you won't make those leaps and bounds with regard to the time you run those longer distances. You must put in the speed work, which actually kids your body to think, look, if I can run a mile, 6-mile pushes with smaller recovery in between each rep at, I don't know, 6-minute mile pace, then when I drop back in inverted commas to 6-minute 30 pace for a mile, it seems easier. And then it seems easier to keep that going, if you see what I mean. So if you're running, I mean, my shortest sessions, apart from like Strive, used to be 2,400 meters. So if you run 2,400 meters, paying very careful attention to your recovery. So you might run just over a minute for a 400 meter and then take a similar amount of time. So if it took you 70 seconds to run 400 meters, then take a 70-second recovery and do it again. It's kind of condensing that speed work to actually hopefully make your body think that I can actually do this for a longer period of time. So when you drop back to something slightly slower, it seems easier. That's all it is. It's quite a simple formula, because I started running marathons before you could really Google search things on the internet so much. I didn't have a coach because I had a couple of offers from guys when I approached them to coach me, but there was always a bit of a hiatus with regard to my diet, in that they thought, well, we're going to invest time in you and you're then going to go away and negate it all by this weird kind of plant-based living that you do, which actually is probably going to be detrimental to any improvement you can make. So the diet isn't, because I don't see it as a diet, I see it as my lifestyle, is not up for a negotiation. So that's when I decided to pretty much I just go it alone and work out what suits me. And I think that's what a lot of people make an error. They look at what Paula Radcliffe's doing, and they look at what certain runners and certain programs in magazines, but that probably doesn't work for your lifestyle. Because when I hear these top runners talk, getting on a plane and jetting off to Germany to have a bunion looked at, that's great for a top runner, but it's not actually any relevance to the way I have to live my life, kind of thing, and do my training. Mine's a lot more kind of basic. It's tough, but if you want to do something, you will be able to do it. And I think along the way, I've not had much interaction with other runners, because I used to really have the toughest part of my running was the fact that, and the most probably unique part of my running was that when I was looking for really quick times in big marathons, like 8th place overall in the Amsterdam Marathon on the elite start, when Haile Gebrselassie was looking for a world record, I spent the Friday evening before the race with Haile Gebrselassie in Amsterdam, just chatting, because we were both there early. And he was explaining that even someone at his level, he finds the training hard, he finds the commitment hard, he finds the time away from his family hard, he finds it hard to get up at 5 a.m. and then do a session in the evening. But he kind of compared my running with his running, not the physical element of it because he's way faster than me, but the fact that at the time he was transitioning from the 10,000 meters on the track to the marathon. And he said a lot of people depend on his running. And that is why that motivates him to push himself that little bit harder. And I think a lot of people didn't realize at the time that there were about 10,000 people in Ethiopia that probably directly or indirectly benefited from Gabriel Selassie's running results, in that he was employing an awful lot of people through his hotel and his training sessions and his track sessions and his cinemas and things that he owned. Whole villages were actually reaping the benefits, and he felt that weight of responsibility, and that's what drove him to go that little bit extra level with his running. So I suppose it's just everyone's different. Everybody's got different motivators, but for me, doing it for a slight, I've never really, I mean, when I'm actually I've got a film coming out about me in a couple of months, and when the filmmakers came to the sanctuary and they said, well, where are all your trophies? I don't know. I've literally got to go and find them and the medals. And I haven't got that kind. I don't come home and like put them all in cabinets and worship them, or, you know, run for medals and trophies and, you know, might win a Garmin or something like that. I'm never doing it for that reason. So it's probably slightly different for me. But that's my motivators. That's how I've made it work.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things in there I want to go back and discuss. I mean, there's a couple of things that jump out at me is this 3:30 a.m. start. I mean, I think I'm horrendous in the morning, and I can't even set an alarm now. I just sort of wake up whatever time, my body says to wake up. I mean, I just out of interest, how much sleep are you getting? What time are you going to bed?
I mean, if I try to get to bed about 9:30. I mean, that's pretty a good night's sleep. When I was doing the retain firefighting at its height, that was difficult because I tended to sign on to be available for the fire brigade when my partner was at home, i.e. in the evenings, at weekends and at bank holidays. And very often at night, you just go settle down in bed and your alerter would go off and you'd have to get in your car, drive up to the fire station. Probably could go out on a 4-hour call with the fire brigade, get back, and you think it's not worth going to bed because I've got to get up in 10 minutes, so to speak. So that was kind of difficult. I suppose I've just become used to it. I really am just used to it. When I very, very rarely get ill. Very, touch wood, very rarely get ill. But when I do, it hits me big time. And then it takes me a very short time to get over it, and I bounce back. I don't know. It's what I've always done. I did it when I was working in London. Used to work in a merchant bank, very, very long hours. We'd probably go to work one morning. I cycle. It was 40-mile bike riding to work. I remember, one day I turned up at 8 one morning and I left at 4 o'clock the next day, not having been to sleep, and rode home. So I've always had this kind of sleep deprived life, which I think my body has now become used to. And I know when I first went out to do marathon Starbull, some of the guys in my tent were moaning, saying, "Oh, you never believe what they get you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you've got to get ready and you've got to go running, and every stage is getting near a marathon, and then you get back and you've got nothing to do," kind of thing. And I'm thinking, that sounds like a holiday to me, actually. So that's kind of quite attractive. I can have a lie-in, and then I just get up and I've just got to concentrate on myself and run the stage and then get back and rest. That's like, whoa, that's like, Butlins in the Sahara for me. I'm just used to it. I've got this passion inside me to do as much as I can while I can, because I realise that life is very fragile. I think perhaps truly, if you want me to be honest, in my teenage years, I spent years on crutches with these orthopedic conditions, and it was at a time, took a long time to diagnose what was wrong with me. And so the general format would be, you would wait to go to the hospital, you would have x-rays, consultants would scratch their heads, they would say best thing to do is to put you in a plastic cast for 6 weeks, go away, non-weight bearing, and come back and we'll see if it's any better. So I spent a lot of time in my teenage years on crutches, immobile, in the house, very frustrated, and perhaps I've never actually forgotten that. And I appreciate every moment that I'm able to do things, whatever it is. I appreciate every moment. For sure, there are times when wake up and you, oh, it can't be 3:30 already. I've just like shut my eyes and I'm getting up. But when I'm, you know, I'm pretty motivated then to think, no, come on, get up, go out. And, you know, as soon as I get going, I'm fine. So perhaps that's it. I don't know.
I mean, I love, you know, from speaking to you, just hearing about your days and, you know, what you're getting up to and the energy that is involved, because it's not like you've got an easy day. It's, you know, from the sounds of it, it's a very physical day. It's a very demanding day. There's lots of things happening, you know, lots of things happening with all of the animals and making sure that their needs are taken care of. And, you know, that's the number one priority. Just almost coming back to your diet, being a vegan, you know, not having, well, I imagine the question that you probably get asked all the time is, but where do you get your protein from? But you sound as though you've got all this energy, you're sleeping well, you're running these incredible times. So tell me more about your diet, what you're eating. I'm just fascinated.
Well, the first thing, my diet is probably about 10th on the list of my priorities. And that's kind of weird for people to hear, because when I do go, I was at Brighton Veg Fest last weekend, and I was on a panel of experts regarding nutrition and athletic performance. And I know the giant Anthony Mullally, rugby player, was on there in Ireland International. And he was talking about his diet and the specifics of his diet and the calorie intake. And I just felt so stupid. I was like sitting there thinking, oh, my Lord, when they come to me, what am I going to say? Because I don't actually focus too much on my own diet, because with 450 rescues to feed, I'm kind of thinking about them first and probably me last. It's very basic, very bland in terms of, I won't say bland, but it's very seasonal. I eat seasonal vegetables, which my father mainly grows. Nuts, pulses, rice. My mum does a lot of cooking, which I'm very fortunate for. Mum and dad live with us now. There's no tricks to it. There's nothing. I don't take any supplements. I don't have anything. Even when I go off to the race, I don't have recovery drinks. I don't use gels. Literally, it's pretty much what I've always had. Bearing in mind, I've been vegan since I was 6. So at that time, there were none of the products available. There was no, you know, vegan authenticity stamps. There was no sort of soya product. There was nothing very much available. You had to create from scratch. And we still do that. I think a colourful palette, a colourful plate. Sometimes I'll have like 10 vegetables on my plate. I do eat a lot of things like beetroot, pine nuts I love, dates, marzipan, very simple things actually. And I've got I don't crave the things that other people crave. For instance, I've never had exposure to things like, you know, vegan ice creams. I know there's Ben and Jerry's now are doing a vegan range in their ice cream. I've never really wanted it, because you don't kind of crave, you know, people see why. You know, a lot of foods are vegan that you don't actually realise are vegan. So you could have toast and marmalade for breakfast, and that's vegan, but people don't necessarily realise it is. There's a lot of accidental vegan food, and they're the ones that I mainly have. I love baked beans, stuff like that. It's very, very kind of what I would call a normal diet, but it just happens to be plant-based.
Are you? What's your treat? Like, I mean, like my go-to is normally like chocolate. Yes, I need some chocolate. Do you have anything like that?
Marshmallows.
Marshmallows.
I like marshmallows. Yeah, you couldn't get vegan marshmallows. You couldn't get vegan marshmallows. And somebody once, you know, gave me a packet for a present. I'd never tasted anything like this. Vegan marshmallows, this is amazing. And yeah, vegan marshmallows are nice. I like marzipan date. So a meshdoul date with the stone taken out and marzipan put in its place is pretty much divine. And that's what I actually cart around the desert with me, even though it's very, very heavy. I like that sort of thing. And also, I think probably my palate's modified. Something like a peach, you know, a lovely sweet ripe peach would be divine. It would be lovely. You know, it would be, you know, I probably got, I don't know, I could probably pick out, I don't tend to take anything that's got a lot of additives in it. So perhaps my palate's a little bit more, I don't know, discerning with kind of very plain things. But I love soup. And I think if you're hungry, you pretty much enjoy anything. And when I sit down in the evening to eat my meal, I'm pretty much usually am ready for it. So I kind of appreciate whatever it is, because I always think, well, I'm very, very lucky to have enough food to live in a country where we aren't without food or worried about food. So I think that makes me appreciate what I'm having anyway so much more.
So I think I read somewhere that you just have one meal a day. Is that correct? Or
that would be quite correct. That is true. That is absolutely the truth. I probably eat it completely the wrong time of the day. And I know I listened to a lady on this panel at the weekend, and she was very specific, get up, half an hour's rest, then have a pint of water and an orange, then rest for half an hour, and then no, not for me. I am like your normal person that gets up and the kettle goes on. And then I will make myself a coffee, black coffee, and I will steam outside, full of the joys of life or not, and I will start trawling my way through my work. And I don't actually snack in the day either. That's the truth. I don't snack. I went to Siberia when I was doing my world records. I went to do the biggest marathon in Russia. And I was on this panel of IAAF had arranged a big press conference, and they got a lot of Kenyan athletes there to answer questions, and me stuck at the end feeling quite out of sorts with all these great runners. And after the press conference, I was speaking to one of the Kenyan coaches, and he was saying, because I happened to mention that I was running a marathon the following week, and he said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "No, I'm doing this world record." He said, okay. And I said, and they'd laid some food on, and I said, I don't eat now, I'm going to eat later, because I only eat one meal a day. And he said, the warrior diet. And I had honestly never heard of it like that. He said a lot of the Kenyan athletes do live like this. They eat one meal a day.
What time do you eat your meal?
I eat it when I've got my job done in the evening, probably about 7:30.
That will be giving me the motivation throughout the day. Be like,
yeah, it does. Honestly, I mean, it does. It works for me. It works for me because I am very much on the go, and it had, I have nothing extra for my training. I never have had anything spare for my training. The only thing I have ever concentrated on when I am running, and I'm running this prodigious amount of miles, is my feet and my shoes, my socks and my shoes, because that is where I'm trying to protect my joints, and I'm trying specifically to protect my knee. So I will be very careful rotating my running shoes. I won't just be going out in a pair over and over again. I will be very, very careful to let them recover and use the right shoes for the right session. That's what I will specify. And I am very careful. I looked at it and I thought, well, I've got no money. I've got no coach. I buy my running stuff basically from charity shops. I am literally on a very, very tight budget financially and with time for my running. But there are little things that you can do with your running that are free. And I've learned to enhance those things and really embrace them. And I know I'm kind of fiddling around with what I'm saying here because it's not what everyone wants to hear. But it is very important. Now, what I'm going to say is, in a marathon, a road marathon, or any marathon, you can always lose more time than you can ever gain. You know what I mean? You really can. If something goes wrong in a race, you can lose a lot of time, but you can't suddenly make up 10, 15 minutes. And a lot of people with running, stomach problems, on-course stomach problems, unscheduled toilet stops, can be a big issue. Never have them, because I micromanage my bowels and when I'm going to go to the toilet. That is something that I can do for free, and it works because throughout my racing, I've never had to stop in a road marathon. I never actually take on board anything but plain water in a road race either. Never, because I don't train with it, so I don't race with it because my stomach just couldn't take it. And so the little tiny things that you can pay attention to probably make more of a difference than the expensive extra things. And I have a friend, actually, a very, very good club runner in Essex, and he was on for a sub 2:30 in the London Marathon one year. And he lost 8 minutes from birdcage walk back to the finish through stomach problems. Just literally hitting that wall and getting into all sorts of trouble. So that's the kind of formula I've always worked to. I can't make any time up in marathons. I can only do what I can do, but you can lose a lot. And so those little things I pay a great deal of attention to, the free things, if you see what I mean. I don't eat I don't go to some big pasta party the night before a race. A carbo load the week before the race, and on the day before the race, I have calories, but I don't have an awful lot of bulk, because I kind of figure that whatever goes in on the day before is probably going to come knocking at the door to come out. When you're actually in that extreme physical debt that any race is going to put you in, things start to fall apart, and your body starts to reject what you're doing and say, I can't handle this. So it works for me, and that's what I've learned in trial and error in my training, what works for me, and it does work for me.
I was going to say, and to be honest, that's actually what it comes down to is, what works for you specifically. And everybody's different. Everybody's bodies are different as well. And it's just figuring this out through trial and error and making it work. I was going to say, one thing that we haven't talked about yet is, some of the more extreme physical challenges that you've undertaken, because you've talked about like Marathon des Sables. You've also run in extremely low temperatures in the Arctic and the Antarctic, I believe, as well as doing sort of like, the Everest Trail Race, the 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Looking back at some of these ultra distances that you've done, is there a race that stands out for you?
I think the most kind of magical race, probably the North Pole Marathon, just purely because it was the first. I'd done Marathon des Sables the previous year. For listeners who don't know, Marathon des Sables is very proud of its billing as the toughest foot race on the planet. It is very hard. You go for a week to the Sahara Desert. You live on very, very limited supplies that you have to carry for the whole week, including all your kit, your clothing, your food. You get a very limited water supply and a temporary shelter with which to bed down in at night. And apart from, obviously there are people around there that you can ask for help, you can pull out of the race, you can go to the doctor if you feel ill, but basically you're on your own, managing yourself, running roughly a marathon a day, but the temperatures, it can get to 55 degrees. It's brutal. Unfortunately, the first year I did that race, I did it with 2 broken toes. I broke 2 toes the week before the race. And then I'm going out to do the Marathon des Sables with 2 broken toes. So the toughest foot race in the world with 2 broken toes, not a good idea. And that's a phenomenally difficult race. I had a thought to myself, I would like to go back in 2013 and do that race again without broken toes. And I was offered a place to go. But in the meantime, and I always say one of my friends suggested, and people are kind of thinking, if people think you've got friends suggesting you do these things, goodness only knows what your enemies suggest you do. But they said, you've done the Marathon des Sables, you've done these phenomenally quick marathons, you've won loads of marathons, you've got loads of course records, you've now done Marathon des Sables. And for Marathon des Sables, unless you have a particular bent or accessibility to train in those conditions, quite hard to excel at that kind of race unless you are going to gear your whole life around it and spend time in, climatizing, which obviously I'm never going to do. So why don't you now go and do the polar marathons? And I thought, there is no way there is a marathon in Antarctica, and certainly not at the North Pole. But for sure there is. And I did look into doing it. Very, very expensive race to enter. And it was prohibitively expensive to me. And so I put it on a back burner until the following year, or, I could think about ways of raising funds. But quite out of the blue, at the end of 2012, the race organizer contacted me and said, if you will do the race, the North Pole race next year, I'll give you the place. I think he kind of just knew I was a good runner. I wanted a good runner, a good lady runner, to go out there and show that this race isn't just exclusively for men. Women can do well in it rather than just get round it. You can actually do well in it. So that's when I grabbed the opportunity of going out to the North Pole. And I think probably that's the most surreal 24 hours of my life, in that you go to Longyearbyen in very northern Norway. And from the moment then you get on the plane and you fly to the North Pole, everything just takes on a different dimension. You're in this little Russian plane, flying you over the Arctic Ocean, landing on ice, leaving you there, going back for more runners, and you're just in a tent and thinking, well, right now my address is Fiona Oakes, the North Pole. And then the next morning, or whenever the weather is clement enough, you're summoned out onto this kind of lapped course of 3 miles, and you're running on the Arctic Ocean. You can hear it beneath you. And my experience was made that much more phenomenal, not just because I won the race and I broke the course record and I podiumed with the men, and it was, great. But after the race, the Russians who actually organise it and allow the race director to use a research camp, Camp Barneo, that they set up, they offer the opportunity to the quicker runners, if the weather is good enough to allow you to do this, to actually go in a helicopter to the actual North Pole, the geographic North Pole. And when we were flying out there, I saw a polar bear coming out of an ice pool, actually on the polar ice cap, and it was just incredible. I remember running around and I thought, look, this is hard. I felt like I got frostbite in my big toe. I didn't, but I just looked up and I thought, you're at the North Pole. You're never going to be here again. And how many women have ever set foot at the North Pole? I didn't realise it was until the late 80s that a woman actually made it to the North Pole. And that was a surreal experience. I learned a lot. From all the more challenging races, I learned a lot about myself in the road marathons. I've learned a lot about my environment, the fragility of it, and other people and the way they live in the longer distance races. I like to learn from our races as well as just do well in them or do my best in them. I like to learn, and that's something I continue to do. One thing, the biggest lesson from the Marathon des Sables is, yes, for sure it is brutally difficult. Yes, for sure you feel tired all the time. It's very uncomfortable. But the biggest lesson I learned was, you are carrying everything you own for that week in this tiny little 20-litre pack. And everything is so precious. Every painkiller, every little boiled sweet, or everything you've got is so precious. But at the back of your mind, you think, at any point you can put your hand up and say to the race organiser, actually, I don't really like it, or I've hurt my foot, can I go home now? And there are so many people out there living with far less possessions that can never do that. These are the conditions, and far worse, that they will endure for the rest of their life. And it makes you realise when you come back to this country how lucky you are to turn a tap on and water come out, to have a comfortable bed to sleep in. And you look at the television and the scenes that are happening around the world of these terrible camps where people have been displaced. And it does put a whole different perspective on it, because you've got some tiny little insight into what those people are going through. And it is just a tiny little insight, as I said, because at any point you can just say, actually, I would rather go over to the white zone, which is where runners who are packed up can go, and then go back to a luxury hotel in wherever you're staying. But it does give you that. There are so many lessons to learn from it if you will open your mind to actually kind of teaching yourself those lessons. It's amazing experiences. Amazing.
Yeah. What are the future goals or future races that you'd like to do? Do you have like a running bucket list at all?
Not really, no. I mean, for a long time I've been saying, okay, I think I've done what I can do with my running in terms of, I've got basically, honestly, I've never really wanted to go off and do these races. It's always been for this agenda to promote veganism in a very positive way. That's why the Vegan Runner Club was started in 2004, because I was getting the elite starts, because I had got the opportunity to publicise what I believed in. If we affiliated a vegan dedicated running club, it's now the biggest running club in the UK and gone massive global, vegan runners. But I've kind of always worked out strategically with my running. If I think I can do something positive with my running, I will do it. If not, I'll probably leave it alone and go and do something which benefits the animals a little bit better, rather than indulging myself. I had got this idea of doing the 4 Deserts Grand Slam, which was basically 4 Marathon des Sables type races in 1 year. And there's one in the Namibian Desert, there's one in the Gobi Desert, there's one in the Atacama Desert, and there's one in Antarctica, all a week long, all self-sufficiency, just to prove that I can do it. I can do this. And obviously you've got different challenges in these deserts. Namib Desert, very, very hot, biggest sand dunes in the world. Gobi Desert, very, very windswept, very barren, different sort of terrain. Atacama, high altitude for a week. That's pretty tough. Altitude over 10 or 11,000 feet is tough to run in, especially for a week. And then in Antarctica, that's got its obvious challenges to be down there in the cold and the barren waste of Antarctica. And I'm doing that this year. I'm just getting ready to go to Namibia to do the first one of those. I've also got the world's first vegan authenticated running shoe to go in. Will Shoes, which are a vegan shoe company, have designed a special running shoe for me, the Oakes cross trainer, and I shall be doing these races in that shoe, just to promote veganism and environmental issues on these continents in a slightly different way. But I've no real bucket list now. I mean, I've done Marathon des Sables 3 times, which is, I'm very proud of the fact that I've done it 3 times, that I've survived it 3 times, and also that I've had the motivation to go back and do it 3 times. Because I remember on the first time I went out to Marathon des Sables in 2012, one of my tent mates hurriedly came along to me on the second day and said, Fiona, you never guess what? I said, well, what, Paul? He said, I've just met a guy and he's packed up. I said, I don't blame him, kind of thing. This is really tough, especially with these broken toes. And he said, no, he did it last year and he came back this year. And after the first day, he just said, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to put myself through this. I just don't want it enough to be able to endure a week of this. So to have done it 3 times, to have gone back 3 times, knowing what I'm letting myself in for, I'm quite proud of. And as I say, the 4 deserts, the Grand Slam, very few women have done it in 1 year. So that's my running goal for this year, in conjunction with still looking after the animals at the sanctuary, still speaking out for the animals. So yeah, I mean, if things come along now, opportunities come along, and if I think they're worthwhile or they'll have some benefit other than just bucket listing things for me, then I'll go and do them. But I'm kind of open. I'm very open in what I do now, and just I appreciate every day that I can run, and I'm able to make these decisions. And every step is precious, because it could all come to an end. So I don't like to think too much about the future. It's more about the present and the good I can do with my running, rather than just doing it for my own good. And I'm sure it does do me a lot of good, actually, because I'm still physically able to keep this momentum up. But I'm just kind of living and learning through each race and exploring different opportunities that the races bring.
I love it. I mean, throughout this whole interview, you've been dropping like truth bombs and advice and tips, and it's just been so inspiring to hear you talk, and especially something that you're so passionate about. Is there any sort of final words of advice or tips or anything that you want to share that you've learned throughout your sort of your running journey so far?
I think the most important thing you can do is believe in yourself. Believe that you can do it. Learn to know yourself. And people look at me and they say, you don't run with a pulse monitor, you don't run with a Garmin, I don't run with any fancy gadgets. And I think, no, but I possess the fanciest computer known to man in my head. And learn to manage the mental side of your running. For sure, the physical side is very, very important. Always being prepared, always doing enough training. But the mental side, and that mental side is to believe that you can do it. Identify the reason you're out there, whatever it might be, and believe, and you can make it happen. And funnily enough, when I was speaking at the weekend, a very lovely young lady wrote to me who was a vet, and she said with her hectic lifestyle, she never thought that she would have the opportunity to take her running to the next level. She'd always dreamed of going, up in races rather than to get round marathons, to look at times and places. Never thought it was possible, but hearing me speak in the way I've done it, she got the belief to kind of now go on, and the motivation to go and think, actually, I probably can make this happen for myself. And I think that's it. Always don't let anybody tell you you can't do something. Work out a way to make it happen in that you can do it. That's honestly the truth. It sounds very cliche, but you can make it happen. Just follow your dream, follow your heart. And for me, it's all been hard effort because I lack talent. But with grit, grind, determination, you can do it. The sky really is the limit for you. And once you put your foot on the ladder of belief, you just want to climb quicker and quicker and quicker. So that would be my advice to people. Don't put barriers in your way to not doing things. Break down those barriers so that you can do them.
Yeah. I think I'd argue against you saying that you lack talent. I think you're incredibly talented at what you do. I mean, there's two other areas I just love you to mention really, which is how can people support you with promoting your message and also helping you to fund the sanctuary, because you have the Fiona Oakes Foundation and you have the sanctuary to help deal with all of the animals that you look after. What's the best way for people to help and support?
Well, there are many ways. I mean, obviously, with the sanctuary, you can fundraise, word of mouth, social media likes, sharing our posts, donating, monthly donations, one-off donations, loads of things like that. I mean, if anyone feels that they want help or they want to know more about my running, you search for Fiona Oakes or Tower Hill Stables Animal Sanctuary. The Facebook page comes up, the Twitter account comes up. Contact me in many ways. Please feel free to contact me, even if you just want some advice. I know when I've been to various vegan festivals, people say, well, how can we help? What are you selling? On the terms of the vegan side of what, I'm not selling anything. I'm just trying to share what I've done as a plant-based athlete for you or whoever to go away and work with whichever part of it you find, if any part of it you find inspiring or motivating, and make it work for you in your lifestyle. But just contact me. I'm always there at the computer. I'm never too busy to reply to people. Always just want to help others realize their dream, because I think actually that to me is the most inspiring thing to do. For sure, it's nice to win races or whatever and achieve, but it's always that much sweeter to know that somebody else has achieved their dream too. So just get in contact by the computer, or give me a ring if you want, and I'm always here happy to share. And there are many ways, obviously conventional ways and probably ways that people haven't thought of to help the sanctuary and promote what we do. And the sanctuary is the main thing that I do work towards. Obviously we need £15,000 a month. We have to raise £15,000 a month. All our own money always goes into it. Whether it be Martin's wages or my parents' pension or my firefighting or what I win with my running or whatever sponsorship I get with the shoes that Will's making, because part of the profits buy a pair of vegan authenticated Oats trainers, and 30% of the profits go to the sanctuary. So that's massive for the animals. Just get in touch and just to chat and share what you're doing. I can always learn myself. That's the one thing about it. I'm an expert on nothing, but I realise that. And I want to learn. So I think the best way to learn is to share experiences. So I'm always happy to help and always interested.
Well, Fiona, thank you so much for sharing more of your experiences on the Tough Girl podcast. I'll be making sure that I put all of the links to the sanctuary, to the Fiona Oakes Foundation as well, and your social media links so people can go and follow you, ask you any questions that they need, and support your mission and what you're doing. You are an incredible role model for women out there, for athletes out there, for vegans out there, and for anybody who just wants to go out and achieve their dreams. Nothing can stop you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I know that episode was a super long one, and so I don't want to be talking on here for like 5 or 10 minutes, which I probably am going to do. I just feel as though there has been a ton of information that I need to share with you all. I almost wish that I was doing my daily podcast again, because I feel a lot of it I'm either forgetting to share or I'm forgetting to tell people. And with, the fast pacedness of the world, if you don't sort of talk about it and share it immediately, then it was so last week or so 2 weeks ago. But I have been down in London for a couple of days, which was amazing, getting to meet with members of the Tough Girl tribe, to catch up with 4 members of 7 Women, 7 Challenges in real life, which is actually so important to me, because I am very isolated doing what I'm doing. I'm also feeling very lonely at times, sitting on my bed, working on my laptop for 15, 16 hours a day. So it was just so great to get out, catch up with so many individuals. I also managed to catch up with old London friends as well as old university friends as well. So it was a super, super fun weekend. I've come back. I'm completely losing my voice, but I've got so many exciting things that I want to share with you, but they're all embargoed. I can't share them with you. So all I can say is please make sure that you have subscribed, because next week there's going to be some really exciting information coming out. That's all I can say. If you're a member of the Tough Girl Tribe, you'll probably hear about it first. But to become a member of the Tough Girl Tribe, you have to now become a patron, because this is how I need to earn money, and this is how I'm trying to fund the podcast and the website and everything else, is by making the tribe a minimum donation of $5 per month. And I just want to say a massive thank you to the new patrons which have signed up in April. Patsy Lamb, thank you so much. Janet Killeen, I hope I'm saying your name right, Killeen. So Killeen, Katie Bow, Laura Mackay, Rosie Campbell, you ladies absolutely rock. I really do appreciate it so much. It makes a huge difference having you on board. What happens is, when you sign up to become a patron, you can choose, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. There's different levels, but you all get your name on my website. There's a dedicated patrons page. We're coming up to 170, or we've got 176 patrons, 176 incredible individuals who've been supporting the podcast, some since I first started at Patreon all the way through. Some people join for the summer, some people join for a couple of months, just as and what they can afford. And I really do, appreciate it when people realize the value that they are getting from listening to the podcast, and hopefully being able to apply it to their lives, getting motivated and inspired wherever you listen to the podcast too. And one of the things that you may have heard me mention is every Sunday in the Tough Girl Tribe, Alison MacArthur does this incredible post, and we get to share all of our successes. And it is amazing to getting to read through what everybody is going out and doing and achieving. So I just want to do a couple of shout outs. So Sarah Bright, I know you've got your first trail marathon coming up, or your first marathon ever, which is going to be a trail marathon in 2 weeks' time. So best of luck with that. I know how hard you've been training. You'll absolutely smash it. Let us know how you get on. Well done for Louise Hunt, who did her first open water swim in 2018. Also want to say well done to Amy Burton, who did a very unconventional triathlon, but I actually, at this moment in time, it sounds amazing. A 5K run, then followed by yoga, then followed by meditation. So that sounds super, super cool. Obviously, I want to do a big shout out to all of the women and men who are out running in the London Marathon, one of the hottest days of the year to run London. An incredible achievement, just massive well done. Make sure you get plenty of rest and plenty of recovery. Saf Whitwan went cliff jumping in Scotland, and what I loved about what she shared was there was 5 of us in a group of about 20 who made it to the highest point, and 4 of them were female, absolutely representing, and I love it. Just incredible to be these role models out there doing these awesome things. Helen Reid went to learn how to paraglide in Spain, which reminds me of a future episode we've got coming out. And I've completely forgotten the lady's name now. It's just disappeared from my head. But I'm going to be speaking with, I've already spoken to her actually, she's called the Human Swan, and she's got this incredible journey of flying with the swans down from Russia, Arctic Russia, all the way to the wetlands in the United Kingdom. So that's going to be an awesome journey. You just reminded me of that, Helen. But loved your photo. Thank you so much for sharing. Mandy Dixie, smashing it with your cycling, cycling 158 kilometers over the weekend and climbing over 1,200. Absolutely epic. I mean, I honestly, I do just want to carry on going through and sharing what the members of Tough Girl Tribe have been doing, what they've been achieving. Nicholas Spear, your 50k sportive, absolutely fantastic. Best of luck with the rest of your tri training. I know you've got a few more months to go, but just keep being committed, keep that focus, keep that dedication. And also Ginny, Amanda, well done for getting out rock climbing. I know you haven't done it for about 4 years, but you got back out there, you got back on the rock, and you did an awesome job. And again, it's just amazing for any women, any girls to be out there, because what happens is your friends see you, your fam see you, other women see you, and that is the ripple effect. That's how it starts, by other women seeing other women out there and doing it. And finally, before my voice ends up completely going, well done to Rosie Baxendine, who did her lowland lead. This is a twister. Rosie Baxendine did her Lowland Leader Award assessment and passed. Absolutely fantastic. And I really think you should consider doing the Mountain Leader Award. I know there's lots of women out there who are looking at doing the Summer Mountain Leader. It's a great stepping stone. Congratulations to Ray. He did a new 10.5k route this week. And also, I cannot believe that Ellie is 6 months old. Where is the time going? Absolutely crazy. So lots and lots of very exciting stuff happening. Please make sure that you have subscribed, that you're following along on social media. I do have a newsletter. I probably need to get better at sending out emails. But I feel as though that if you're interested, you'll follow along anyway with the social media, whether you get your information through Instagram or Twitter. I haven't really shared that many YouTube videos recently, but I do want to change that. Well, like everything, there's so much stuff that I want to be doing. I just haven't got around to it yet, but I will. It is part of my massive to-do list. More information about me, Tough Girl Challenges, is available at toughgirlchallenges.com. Please do go check it out, especially if you're new to the podcast and it's the first time you've listened. I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard and that it's inspired you to go back and listen to the previous episodes. We've got over 150 episodes now available for you to listen to. Incredible stories, incredible women, incredible challenges, so much information out there. If you're ever having a tough day, you need some motivation, just put a Tough Girl podcast on. Whether you're commuting, you're running, you're pottering in the house, you're out in the garden, you're walking, you're hiking, whatever it is that you're doing. This is the great thing with podcasts. You can take them with you wherever you are. Make sure you tell one friend about the Tough Girl podcast. I don't have a marketing budget apart from me. So I do actually need all of your help for the podcast to grow and for more women to be inspired. And you're all of you listening, you are all ambassadors, you are all supporters, you are all incredible. And I just want to say how much I appreciate your support. We're coming up to 3 years in August. It's going to be incredible to reach that milestone. Less than 4 months to go. It's going to be very interesting in the next couple of months. Enough from me, but take care. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you again for your incredible support. And I'll be back with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl podcast. Keep listening, keep challenging yourself, and I'll speak to you soon. Lots of love. Bye.